part of the Revolution Radio family. And my special guest this evening is Mr.Rho. And let me read you his incredible bio here. I should have like weird music in the background while I'm reading this, but I'll do my best. But there is more, let's see here. There is more than one mode of the one they call Mr.Rho, a subtle etherealistic dark mode and a technological substantialistic mode of multi-being, both magic and mundane, technical and sublime. By both instinct and general nature, Mr.Rho is a private individual and can be quite recluse. Recently, however, due to the state of affairs of humanity and mojo in general, Mr.Rho's inner core has responded to the call and has made the decision to vocalize and bring attention and thought stimulation by way of freedomslips.com and his appearances in audio form. The technical side of Mr.Rho's life path started from an Atari 400, we all know those, with a 300 baud modem. As a child, Mr.Rho loved to take the challenge of finding new places over the phone lines, a young hacker and phone phreak until 18, after which he started his official career path technologically through the first internet service provider, Netcom in San Jose, California. After that, it was on to the utility industry where he worked at the headquarters of Pacific Gas and Electric in the Technology Service Center in San Francisco. Close to the turn of the century, Mr.Rho was tapped by a headhunter for TRW Space and Defense. He would walk the classified corridors of the defense contractor industry for several years, learning about companies like CSC, Raytheon, Lockheed, and EG&G. Then another sudden shift to Biosystems Company working with cryogenic systems. After leaving that position, Mr.Rho relocated to the European Union, where he has done freelance work in several fields and positions and lived in Camden Town in London, Comaruga near Barcelona in Spain, Ventimiglia in Italy. I'm probably screwing this pronunciation up. Dubrovnik in Croatia. I know I screwed that up too. Amsterdam and The Hague in the Netherlands. And Mr.Rho has also traveled extensively and has experienced deep, intimate relations with many different cultures of Europe, Suriname, Russia, Africa, India, Asia, and the Middle East. This has given him a very unique and neutral outlook towards culture bubbles. As a child, Mr.Rho has always been in tune with something, quote unquote. The Hat Man and shadows have always been close by, and the unacknowledging gray humanoid forms glide, walking past used to frighten the young Rho on lonely afternoons. But as time progressed, the unseen, the feelings, and the embracement of the shadow realms just beyond his study and travels in and out of the dream time, the old ways and craft workings, shamanistic influences of friends, met like Terence McKenna, Robert Anton Wilson, holy men, shaman of many cultures and others. He has come to realize that there is so much to existence and being that many unfortunate people never even realize. Mr.Rho is dedicated to the upliftment, continuation, and enlightenment of the beings in his general vicinity and beyond. And it's a pleasure to have Mr.Rho on tonight. He's kind of like my evil twin in a weird way. So please welcome Mr.Rho to the show. Hi there.
Hello. It is an honor and pleasure to be with you again, evil twin.
It is. I'm kind of like your evil twin. I think there's something there. But anyways, it's great to have you on. I know it's late and past your bedtime, so thank you for joining us. And everybody adores you here at the station, so it's great to have you on board here. So what have you been up to?
Well, I've been up to, recently this last week, I've been busy covering for Sean David Morton.
You did a fabulous job, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. And I must say that I do consider the folks at the station my family, my extended family, so it is heartfelt thank you and warmth and good vibes going out to everybody else. So
I agree.
Yes, it is really an honor and a pleasure to be part of this station. So that's where a lot of my focus has actually been, is getting research done and thinking about how I can go further and progress with the station as well.
Exactly. Well, there's so much going on here on the timeline. I mean, we can address so many different topics tonight, and we do everybody does here at the station. We're addressing so many different things that nobody will even touch on mainstream. And I agree with you. I think that it's really nice here at the station insofar as we are really standing up and being counted on so many different levels. And I think sometimes we forget that, we just think we're just running with energy and information, but really it does make an impact and it does make a change.
Oh, definitely. We are, I've heard the word truth media, and I've heard it both in a complimentary form and in a derogatory form. But, we are truth media. And it's just funny. Sometimes I laugh when somebody looks and says, oh, you're the truth media. And there's something wrong with that. I mean, there's something wrong with being a person that wants to seek out truth. So I see a shifting apart of logic, people that can see things for as they are, reasonable and logical thinking, and other folks that just seem so detached that the very truth in front of them, it could be biting them in the face, but they're not acknowledging it. And I don't know what it is, but there's something that's pulling some minds away from logic and reason.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if it's just a low IQ, and I don't want to be cruel, but I'm beginning to wonder what separates those of us who are really switched on in intellect and higher consciousness and just plain logic and situation awareness versus these other people who are like, well, I would say possibly mind control to some degree because they're just out of it. They're just in this stasis of complacency and ignorance.
Yeah, I think, there's like an attitude behind it, and it's, I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it because it transcends race, color, creed, religion, ethnicity, nationality. But I don't know, maybe it's something from, I've talked about this before, what's referred to as the black goo, or this nano consciousness or nano construct of self-organizing ancient alien gooness, if you will, that seems to be capturing the eating holes in people's auras, or what do you want to call it, but this seems to be what is a connection with a lot of things that I've been researching lately. I've been doing a lot of research into Islam, for example, and I'm going to have a guest next week who is an Islamic scholar, actually, who will answer any question anybody has on the ideology. And one of the main things at the center of it is the black stone in the Kaaba. And that meteorite seems to be connected as well to this nano goo. And it's just interesting to me how people have described this meteorite as something that can pull your consciousness or grab you. And there are altars in churches, in fact, in Rome as well, that are made out of this same type of stone. And it is also described as some attraction, as a force, and there is a feeling that you can get. And I've actually been in some of these churches, these large churches. I'm sure other people can relate. When you go in these buildings, you have it's not a warm, fuzzy feeling. When you go into a big old church, that feeling you have, it's that eeriness. But these, it's just something that I've been mindful of, and I think is now coming to the forefront, especially with the advancement of technology and people like us on the truth media side that are looking into deep and in contact with people that do deep research, whistleblowers that come out with information and present it. We are the ones to bring this information to the forefront, and we're the ones to start making these connections. It's folks on the truth media, excuse me, that compare notes and use technology now, like the internet, to put these things together and voice our opinions. And no matter how crazy it may sound, and we're not doing it just to get ratings. We're not out there because our corporate sponsor says, you can talk about this, go ahead and push this for a while. Let's talk about the millionaires throwing the ball around. No, we talk about things that are scary but stimulating, as well as things that are right around the corner. It's things that are hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. And you mentioned something which I think is interesting. It seems to me like you were talking about what kind of war we're involved in, and it's on all levels. But actually, when I'm looking at it from a higher perspective, I see it as a species war. In other words, I see it as some of us who have our DNA upgraded, that are at war with these, what I don't want to call them subhumans, but these are people that are infected with some kind of a brain virus, in my opinion. Because, what you were mentioning with the black stone, that's another thing. It is connected to this quote-unquote nano goo or whatever it's connected to. There's something there that's influencing these people psychologically and energetically. Now, I'm wondering if that stone is mirroring their impurities to a point where it's making them psychotic, that they can't hold the higher vibrations and frequencies of the cosmos. So that stone emanates, and the best they can do is basically stir up weirdness in them. Or is the stone contaminated to begin with? What do you think about that?
I think I think it's a little bit of both. I think that the stone has an ancient alien technology that's come from space that has that went wrong for whatever reason, and now it's emanating this, I guess, this sort of attraction that what it seems to do is dwindle your green light heart chakra, and I think it's like a feedback thing. Someone that is starting to feel this attraction goes and starts worshiping this stone and giving energy toward it, and then it's taking that energy and then pushing it back out. And I see, like, for example, if you see someone who is very devout in the Islamic ideology, if you look at their forehead and you start looking at some of these older guys with the big beards and the total, devout Islamic, you look at their forehead, you're going to see a bruise or a large lump. And the reason you see that is because that's from banging their head almost in ecstasy on the ground as they're praying. They get so into it that it's like almost like a feedback, like, and I think that's the impression that I get.
So do you think it's I didn't mean to interrupt you, but do you think they're activating their Kundalini on a dysfunctional level? Because it seems to me like, and I don't know, no offense to some males, but it seems to me like they get their energies locked up, and then they get into this euphoric space where they're meditating, and then they don't move the energy accordingly to higher consciousness of enlightenment. And it seems to me like perhaps that's one of the mechanisms that's going on, trapped in the lower Kundalini or trapped in the lower chakras.
That very well could be, and then there's the binding or the oppression of the release of the male sexual energy as well, because this ideology forbids interaction between male and female, and until a certain time, and then so there's a lot of natural things that are missing in that type of person's life. And on top of what you were saying, yes, I think that it's bruising the aura, if you will. It's something that is it's detrimental. Like you mentioned one time that they go counterclockwise.
Correct. Yes.
And that is absolutely the wrong way to go.
Exactly. And I was wondering if they rotate it like back and forth, but like they do it, I want to say like on a running track or something, but I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Now, they also I think they bang their head on the wailing wall as well, don't they?
Yeah, I think so too. And I'll tell you point blank, I mean, when I was pulled into covert technology, without being too specific, those people were involved in some weird stuff like that. And you know what? I just think that it's whatever they're doing, they're contorting and twisting energies on a higher level of consciousness. They're not raising their psyche to the level of the full light universe that they're supposed to be doing. And I think that their actions prove that by violence, by the way they're violent, by the way they treat people, by the way they attack and abuse women and children. I think that's a mirror image of who they really are. And that is not spiritual. That is not ascended in consciousness. That is not part of the celestial galactic neighborhood. Sorry. So that's my biggest beef I have with them.
Yeah, and I've always been leery of just about anything that is how can I put this? Any sort of I've always had an instinctual feeling on a lot of things. Like, I think that the religion is a personal thing if you're going to have one. Each and if there are 6 billion people on the planet, there are 6 billion religions. There's no one way to do things. There's no one correct way to practice a certain thing. Everybody is unique in their energy, and you learn to tune that into that's how I feel, with your environment, and I've always been leery of something that wants to put you in a construct, in a box, whether it be public school or Sunday school or or any religion, a church, whether it's Catholicism, Christianity in any form, or Islam or Buddhism. They all have good points. I've read parts of the Quran that I agree with. I say, okay, I agree with that verse. and I've read parts of the Bible that I disagree with. But, for the most part, I disagree with the underlying tone of anything that wants to constrain the people or the spirits or the souls or the consciousness. Because we're not meant to be constrained in any way. We're meant to be free. We're meant to explore. We're meant to expand.
I totally agree. Well, it's about spiritual enlightenment. That's the bottom line. You take it from the level of religion and you take it an octave up, because religion to me is really just a tool of control and manipulation. And also, these guys know that they have power by controlling the mass collective. We've talked a little bit about how when you focus, you get a group of people to focus as a hive on an object or on a belief system. It's going to amplify that belief system because we live in a holographic reality. So literally, they're amplifying the belief system. It doesn't make it an accurate belief system. It's just that it's able to manifest through collectives. And I think that's what goes on with religion. This is why there's always recruitment for religion and belief systems. And of course, Islam is like one of these big pushes right now where they're trying to push everybody into one belief system. Well, sorry, that doesn't work for me and many others, especially from my background, because I'm a craft practitioner and many other things. So, but I can tell you, I understand the mechanics of the universe and how we create as we go through consciousness. But if your consciousness is impure, you're going to create violence, you're going to create upheaval, you're going to create all this stuff. I mean, look at what they've done here on the timeline, and I'm just talking about them. But the devious, these people in these covert areas who have been the puppet masters behind the scenery for a very long time, they've created this fabric, but it's time to rip this fabric apart. It does not work.
Yeah, I call this new age that we're moving into. I see a new paradigm that's being constructed by the elite, or at least, you know how they have the Gerald Celente, the foreign trends forecaster, right? Well, I have my own little personal Gerald Celente clone in my head that tries to forecast trends, and I see what I call we're moving into the age of the rainbow burqa. Which is, it's kind of like we're moving into an age where with the strictness of Sharia law, but the leniency of, ultra-left liberalism. And I hate to use that term, liberalism or ultra-left, but that's kind of how I describe it, where we have, it's almost an oxymoron. And that's why I use the term rainbow burqa. Because, for example, you have people that are, let's say homosexual, anti-gun, and pro something, but at the same time, they're all for the Islamic expansion, which is completely incompatible.
Correct.
Islam does not bode well with someone that is homosexual. They put them to death. But see, this is going to be meshed, and we're going to come into, they want us to move into this twisted, warped age where everyone is equal but a unique snowflake. Everybody is different, but you're all the same. You're all the same difference. if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it sounds like Alice in Wonderland gone bad on acid or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're free to do anything you want and be as crazy, but lest you offend one person. Lest if your spirit can flow and be free, yes, fly your flags, but if somebody yells that they're offended by that, then we'll have to take appropriate action. And I see things happening like declaring these folks up in Oregon, whether you agree with them or not, they're these white cowboy wearing people are now terrorists. Terrorists for before, even if what they did was wrong, without going into the whole thing, they burned some grass or whatever. The most in, let's say, 1980 they would have been charged for would be something like arson. Mm-hmm. That would be where it would stop. Now, arson's a pretty serious crime in and of itself, but to go across that line now, where the government is just with ease stepping right over the line and going, "You're a terrorist, you're a terrorist, you're a terrorist," and we're going to just broadcast on TV how we just put down the citizen terrorist. Just like that, we're going to block the road. We're going to lie to you. And they do it over and over. We're going to treat you with no respect. We're going to pretend we do for a little while, just to get you to lower your guard if we need to. But then we're going to do what we need to do in the end, and that's that. Mm-hmm. And that's what our government is doing now. And I'm seeing us move into this crazy age. I mean, it's going to be beyond idiocracy.
Mm-hmm. It's insanity in motion. It's interesting. They call our founding fathers terrorists too. I mean, Now they're I'm related to Thomas Jefferson. So what does that make me? But it's kind of interesting because when you look back, there's no pride, there's no respect, there's no courtesy for our founding fathers, for what this country was founded on, which is everybody was jealous. Other countries were jealous of the freedom of America, the entrepreneurs, the brilliant minds that came out of here. I mean, we had some really good things happening here in America. It's such a shame to watch this, and I think you're right. You're seeing this federal government now just completely. They'll take as much as they can, and they don't care anymore. I don't think they ever really cared to begin with, but I'll tell you, it's blatantly obvious to me that they want to tear everybody down who's a good person. If you're a good person and you want to stand up for the truth, they don't want the truth. They want everybody to be complacently controlled, manipulated, and part of what I call this new agenda. And there's a lot of talk about it being called the Fourth Reich, and I see the Fourth Reich on a lot of different levels. I see it surfacing in control, manipulation, frequency fences, brainwashing, poisoning of water. I mean, we can go on and on. Forced belief systems. And if you stand up and you object, you're a criminal. That's BS. That's got to be stopped. And the people that are encouraging this behavior need to be tried. This is not okay, and this is not acceptable. And at some point in the continuum, I'm telling you, people need to get it. They've got to get it together, or you might as well just say, the meek will inherit the earth. Well, I'll tell you what, the earth is going down, so you better stand up and be counted while you can. But don't get me started, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we both get fired up, I don't know, maybe the whole place will blow up. But
but I told you were my evil twin, right?
Wonder Twin powers activate.
Yeah.
So yes, if we're both in the same room at the same time, it's kind of like antimatter and matter meeting, and
I know. It's very interesting.
No, you're right, and it's time to get fired up. It's time that more people start to see this, that they're being played. We're being lied to and played, and I am leery still about this next election. I still go into this election looking at Trump with a suspicious eye, but at the same time, I dare I say this, that there is something in my gut that says, if you were in his position, even if you have a bunch of skeletons in your closet, even if you are part of, the group up there at the top, which is separate from us, you're an elite, you're a multi-billionaire, you might still have regular thoughts. You might still think back and go, I could actually go down in history as a statesman if I play my cards right. Maybe he is starting to think about karma, because I don't know. I certainly, if I was in that position, I'd actually want to do the right thing. And I'm hoping that maybe there are folks up there that might possibly be, maneuvering into positions to clean up the act on this planet, and love him or hate him. And, but something's got to give, and we have to, unfortunately, if we say something like, well, they're all useless and Trump is just another scam and all that, and it's hopeless, well, yeah, you can go down that road, but I don't know. Something in my gut says that maybe this new guy, Trump, might possibly be something that the people need to kind of throw a monkey wrench into the way the paradigm is going.
Absolutely.
I think there are factions fighting, and I think not all of them want to see complete, total destruction, domination, and mind control. I think that there are factions that do. That's the problem. That's what the problem is the species is being stagnated. That's why we don't have patents being released. That's why we're burning oil and using internal combustion engines and still stringing wires up, because the ones in control are not the ones it should be. But there are factions out there that want to gain the upper hand, and they have to kind of be in the shadows as well until the time is right. I mean, even if you're doing the good fight, there is a time to lie in wait. I mean, you don't just run out there in the middle of everything and get blown away. You have to be strategic. So that's what I'm feeling now, is there are forces at work behind the scenes, not just in the presidency, but somewhere back there in the intelligence agencies, and keeping things, the way they are. That's why we don't have right now a major outbreak of a disease or like Ebola or heaven.
Not yet.
Well, I hear that the Zika thing is a cover for something else. And I'm not sure what it is, but I heard that Zika is not as a serious thing as they're saying it is, but they're using it as a cover for something else. And I haven't been able to vet that information, but this new Zika virus that's causing all of these children or babies to be born with very small heads, that's kind of strange. It just sort of pops up out of nowhere. But there is some evidence to show that this is the same area that genetically modified mosquitoes were released by Billy Goat Gates.
Right.
So
there you go. You know, it's interesting. I think it's affiliated with Rockefeller, too, by the way. I saw an article on that not too long ago. So once again, you're dealing with, engineering manipulation. It's biochemical warfare at its worst on so many different levels, but there's so much happening here. And it seems to me like they want to dumb the people down to make themselves look smarter when, in fact, they're actually not quite intelligent. If they were really smart, they'd be enhancing people to the highest level so that people would be super intelligent. Naturally, we'd have a wonderful world where we'd be benefiting by everybody being intellectually evolved and intelligent and, smart, strong, healthy. I mean, isn't that what you really want? Because for me, I'm an empowering type of person. I like to empower people. I don't like to disempower them. And all I see here on this timeline and the illusion of it is disempowerment, break them down, but not to build them up for the better, but for more control and manipulation, which is so wrong. But I hope there are people behind the scenes, like you mentioned. I really do, because I've been pushing for that, and I've been trying to get to light a fire under their butts and say, hey, you need to move now, guys, or at least get yourselves together to a point where you're organizing, because this is insanity.
Well, I think they do. Like, for example, I've been into Bitcoin, for example, for a little while. And it comes from, it was born in the dark, on the dark net, from somebody that nobody knows who it is, Satoshi Nakamoto. A lot of people say, well, it's CIA or an intelligence agency creation. And maybe it is. But that doesn't mean it's bad. But like I just said, there are forces behind the scenes everywhere. The good will overpower the bad, and the good are remaining hidden until the time is right. And I think when you see something like, for example, I've given a lot of thought to this cryptocurrency blockchain technology that Bitcoin runs off of, which is open source, and the versatility of it allows empowerment, like you said, of the people, of the masses, by allowing, let's say, it to be applied to a voting system, which has been corrupted. So now, for the first time ever, we have an open source, fully transparent way of doing a direct one-to-one vote on anything. It could be as small as a town hall or county level meeting kind of vote thing, or as large as worldwide. And the powers that be, like the banking system and all that, are very opposed to this. And you see how, I look at how who moves as one and what direction they want to push things, little trends that they're trying to push, and how the whole banking industry kind of wants to throw Bitcoin in a bad mode. And so and if it is released by the powers that be, I see this still as a good thing from probably some faction inside there. Just like, how did the internet get released? They're now coming out saying, well, it was never really intended to be a worldwide public thing, but now it is, and there's nothing we can do about it. So these things happen. Monkey wrenches are thrown into the mix. This is why they run around trying to stamp national security patent seals on everything. Somebody comes out with a great idea, and boom, patent, national security letter. Oh, we can't have that. Why? National security? How in the hell is a 250 mile per gallon carburetor a threat to national security? Really, answer me that. How is that a threat?
Anything that you do that evolves or ascends to some degree or can expand the masses on some level, you'll be looked at. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes for any kind of technology that people come up with. And I've even noticed that with and I don't want to go into another direction, but with contactees, for example, and people who have real legitimate experiences or who have real gifts, they get looked at by covert intelligence and they get recruited. And of course, back in the old days, I don't have to tell you this, but I'm sure you're familiar with the Russians being very much into psychic abilities and enhancing those through different technologies. So this isn't something that's woo-woo. This is actually real. But I see that also. I see that, if you have something that can jump another level beyond to where they're at or what they want you to have, they will come after you. And I kind of experienced that firsthand in 2004. But, I had a guest on the other day, and we were talking about the movie Jumpers. Do you remember that? Did you get to see that movie?
Yeah, where they could teleport.
Yeah, but whenever they went somewhere, somebody was always tracking them. They were always trying to cause interference. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. When you go to different levels in consciousness, or even developing something, there's always somebody there to give you a hard time. Now, whether it's national security or somebody else or part of the secret society's, strong arm, somebody's going to be there to run interference. And I've run into this myself, and I know other people who are inventors who have run into this, and I'm sure you're aware of it as well. So, yeah, it's out there, it's everywhere, and it tells me that there's such a need for these people to control and manipulate. They just have to let go of the wheel. They have to let go because the universal flow is not about control and manipulation, especially when it comes to evolution and consciousness. These guys are so out of control, it's not even funny.
It's kind of like on to move over into the supernatural side, if you will. The control level even bridges into the realm of, let's say, astral or dream travel. I've talked to folks that have told me that, yes, what you were saying, there's things that watch and follow you. And one way that someone told me to avoid this in the astral world is to go through tunnels. But it is on every level that we are being either attempted to be controlled, watched, manipulated, or corralled or steered, herded, or even farmed. On the physical level, we are being farmed. Our loosh is being farmed on a spiritual level, and the energy is trying to be moved into this crazy, weird, dark energy. I'm not sure what to make of it, but the thing that did get me into the supernatural realm was when I was a child. I used to get up every night and have a visit with the Hat Man.
That is interesting.
This is the one thing I'll tell you. This is the thing that started me on this path. As my earliest memories. First, my earliest memories are of what they call Naga. I don't know why, but the Naga are my very earliest memories. Period. And then, as the soon as I could walk, I used to, and this followed me at like 2 or 3 houses. I would get up in the middle of the night. Maybe I was 2 years old. Maybe I was 4 years old. This happened for years. This was like repetitive. And I'd get up, I'd walk calmly into the hallway, and then I'd stand there and turn and face the bathroom, and there would be like a light from the outside, and in front would be the silhouette of the shadow person. And sometimes it would be the Hat Shadow Man, and sometimes it would be a regular one. But it was always the same. He would just sort of stand there, and I'd stand there, and then he'd reach out at me and push me, and I'd fall backwards out of my body. I'd see myself standing there as I'm falling backwards. And then right before I hit the bottom, I would feel myself be pulled back in and snap back into my body. And then I'd just calmly go back to sleep. Now, this would happen, a lot. In fact, it happened so much that I didn't like it. I would actually go to sleep and I would put my head on my pillow, and I used to say things like, "Oh, please don't come." But if I kept repeating that, the beat of it would bring them. So it just made it worse. So after years of this happening, maybe not every night, but a couple times a week, I would get used to it. And the one thing, though, that I never got used to, that also happened kind of in tandem or in parallel with this, is during the daytimes, only when I was alone. But during the day, let's say if I was in my parents' room sitting on the bed, there's nobody else, it's just me. It's a calm Sunday afternoon. It's very quiet. I would see these gray forms, and they'd come out of the walls of the closet. They'd walk across the room. They wouldn't acknowledge me. They would have no features, no faces. They would sort of glide, walk, and those scared me more than anything else. Those I was very frightened of. I actually called them zombies, and I told my parents about them, and they thought, well, maybe I should go see a psychologist. They would, do you talk to them? No, I'm scared of them. I want them to go away. Well,
That's wild. It's like you're a contactee when you're talking about this stuff. Do you know Heidi Hollis?
No.
You need to get in touch with her. She does all these books on the Hat Man. She's real big on the Hat Man. She's got a show about it too, and it's very interesting to me. It sounds like they had you marked for observation as a very young boy.
Well, here's the thing. After I grew up, those experiences sort of stopped. And I've had some other things. But the one thing, and I'm going to tell you, that happened was, I guess I was probably about 18 or 19, and I was with a friend of mine from Greece, and he was telling me about this book, like a grimoire that he had it was old, a Greek book that he had got from his grandfather, and it had like he said had a curse on it or whatever, but it was a really cool book and blah blah. So I begged him to let me see it, and finally, after a long time, he said okay, and he brought me to his house, and I sat in the car, and he went in and got it. He brought it out to the car, and he put it in my lap, and the book was cold. And I was like, did you take this out of the freezer? I mean, it was literally cold, and it was a summer day. And he says, no, this is the book. And I'm holding this thing, and it's like ice, and I open it up, and he looks away, and then I look down, and it's all in Greek. And so I flip it through a few pages, and it's just a bunch of Greek stuff. So, okay, I closed the book, and because I was feeling a little bit weird, but I didn't attribute it to the book, and I gave it back to him, and I wasn't interested in it anymore. I just said, okay, I've seen it, thanks, that's kind of cool. And normally I'm interested in books. Anyway, he takes it back in, and he brings me back home. And I go into the house. It's a summer night, and it's pretty warm out. I go in my room, and it's cold. And I'm thinking, well, this is weird. Maybe the heat's on in the house, and I left my thing closed, and I'm thinking, but it's summer, and it didn't make any sense. And so the light was off, and it was dark, and I walk into the room a little further, and I stop, and I turn around to turn the light on, and there are two red eyes just inches away from me, staring at me. That is the most frightening moment that I've ever had in my entire life, bar none. I mean, that the feeling that I had, and it just, I dove for the light switch, and then it was gone. Whatever it was, I think it was a shadow something, something that followed me, and the room was a normal temperature. And, you know, I kind of slept with the light on that night. And that was one of the most frightening things ever happened to me. And that kind of put me in my place, just the feeling. I mean, it was so frightening, I had a weird taste in my mouth.
That's interesting. Well, you strike me as someone who's an abductee, but what's really interesting is that I wonder if you have a relation to the Hat Man insofar as maybe your lineage or something is associated with him on a ancestral line, perhaps. I find that very, very interesting. Do you obviously have some kind of supernatural abilities because you do have psychic vision, right?
Oh, yeah. I've had some interesting things occur. There was a strange dream I had that involved the Hat Man too. As we were all in a circle, and we were talking about our spirit guardians or whatever. Now I've been told, you know, that my spirit totem is an owl, and I've been given a name that is associated with the owl, but that has nothing to do with the dream. Everybody is going around this table saying like, okay, my spirit is my guardian, whatever, is the raven, and then the next person goes and says mine is the lion, and then it goes around, then it comes to me, and before I can speak, something comes to right over my right shoulder. And I turn and look, and there's these two red eyes, and it says, I am the shadow. And then I wake up.
You're a spook baby. That's all there is to it. Do you come from spook family, like feds or something? Covert intelligence?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
All right. Because I have friends who actually had, like, you know, their parents were FBI or something, and they wind up being kind of spooky. You know what I mean? I'm kind of spooky, too, and that's why I say I'm your evil twin.
Well, yeah, you know. Well, let me tell you one more that's really weird. Somebody that I was very close to passed away, right? And they were buried in a cemetery. And then I had a friend years later that has never met this person. And we went to the cemetery just to say hello. I was with my friend, and we were in the area. And I said, hey, you know, you've never met this person. Well, let's go to the cemetery and just say hello. We went to the grave, didn't spend very much time there. And nobody saw us there. Then we left. We got to my house. And as I walked in the door, the phone was ringing. So I have caller ID. I go look, and the caller ID says it's the cemetery. And the answer machine picks up, and I hear like the touchstones, toot, 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 toot. And then I pick up, and there's nothing there. And then I go, well, that was kind of weird, you know. And so we didn't think much of it, but it was kind of just spooky. Now, then, 2 days later, I get a phone call, and it's the after a little while, I take my friend home to his house. We're walking in the door and his phone's ringing. Caller ID, it's the cemetery.
Wow.
Same tones. We call back the cemetery. They have no idea what we're talking about. So I had also made a deal with this person that if there was a sign that they could give when they went to the afterlife, that if they would do that. And they said, yeah, they would. So I've had some strange things occur. People that I believe have been channeled also have been spoken to by spirits. I was with somebody that described some things to me that they could not possibly have known. That, though, I think was demonic. Mm-hmm. There's your gut can tell you, because this friend of mine was under the influence of certain substances and said some things about some close family people that he could never have possibly known, that tried to get a rise out of me, tried to like how could this person do this to this other person, kind of like make me think like, could this possibly be a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And that tells me that it was demonic.
Yeah. Definitely, if they're insidious in some way, I agree with you on that one. They're not coming from a pure source at all. What's interesting when you mentioned the cemetery, it reminds me of that Twilight Zone episode. You remember with the lady and she had the phone from that man who'd call her from the grave?
I think I vaguely remember.
Gosh, what was the name of that episode? You guys probably remember it in chat. But anyways, it was really creepy, and that's what it kind of reminds me of. You try and contact her from the grave. She'd answer the phone, and he'd be garbled. And later on, they found the power line on the grave. And
oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, that was classic, man. That was great. But that's what it reminds me of when you're talking about the cemetery. I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't get spooked by that stuff. To me, it's kind of the norm because, the mirror between worlds, between dimensional states of consciousness, and as when we transfer out, it's just another state from one state of consciousness to the next. It's just like walking across the room in frequency. So some people get spooked by that, but not me.
Oh, I love exploration of consciousness. I did dissertations on dream time, and in college I was Mr. Dream and research. I actually went so far as to I programmed myself. I used to, when I was a teenager. It started out by setting my alarm clock to wake up every hour, for the reason being that I wanted the night to last longer. So I figured if I went to sleep, every time I would go to sleep, I'd wake up and I'd miss out on the night because I wouldn't experience it. So I decided if I wake up every hour, I could savor going back to sleep every hour. And what happened was, now instinctually, well, I didn't know it at the time, but when you do that, you change your alpha, beta, gamma state over and over. And for me, it made it easier by the end of the night, let's say 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, to go back into the dream. And I found out I was having 4, 5, 6, 7 dreams a night that I could remember that were really vivid by doing that. And so I started doing that, and now I do that normally. I go to sleep, wake up, and then go to sleep, wake up. It's no big deal, but I got into that practice, of just really the exploration of consciousness. I've experimented with shamanic plants, Salvia divinorum, some of the other things, and taken consciousness to the other side of the wall and back again. So the universe is a very interesting place.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely that opens your DNA to higher levels of consciousness, and as long as you're riding the waves of what I call more of a higher frequency versus the lower astral plane, it seems to me like people tend to stabilize if they're experimenting on that level.
But they want to keep everybody they want to keep everybody in the physical, and they don't want anybody to any exploration of consciousness. I think that's the main reason why substances are illegal, not because it's a profit thing that's part of it. But I think as the enlightenment and to break programming. There are some substances, of course, that are great for programming, but others that are just incompatible, and they know that.
Right.
They know that people wake up and start questioning everything around them, and they know they'd rather keep them beer and football, keep them doing the busy work every day, and that's fine.
Yeah, consciousness is a reality changer. That's the whole thing. And you know it as well as I do, that we can change everything by manifestation at will. They know this too, and that's why they want to control the collectives. If you have a specific gift, this is why I always say, if you're a powerful psychic or you're powerful as a game changer in consciousness, they want to control and manipulate that. And they have the AI now to do it, and they have artificial intelligence interface and all sorts of tracking systems they can use with signals intelligence. So
Yeah. Signals intelligence. Now, I got an interesting story. When I was, I don't know, maybe 13, 14 years old. I don't know. I was young, and I was doing my phone phreaking.
This is funny.
We were we were calling all kinds of different places. I mean, we had lists. We were groups of hackers that knew other hackers, and they had access to things like phone systems that were able to get phone numbers of people like Bill Cosby or the Queen of England. And we would call famous people. Some folks would call 911 operators at the time and screw with them a little bit. Now, they couldn't find us. We were phone freaks. We were hackers. What? You're going to find us. Well, we decided to call the White House.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so at a conference, we call the White House and, hi, is the president? They're all, White House signal. Yeah, is the president available? You've reached White House signal. Click. So we decided, hey, well, we better not mess around with that. All right, whatever. Okay, guys, talk to you later. Hang up the phone. Ring. Phone rings immediately. Oh, okay. Pick up the phone. Hello? Yeah, this is White House signal. I'm like, oh shit. My heart skipped a couple beats, and they literally were talking about how they knew exactly what we were doing, and they commended us for being so, knowledgeable in the circuitry at such young ages, and that they would make us a deal that if we would promise never to call the White House again, they would promise never to call us again.
Well, that's good.
So I said, okay, yep, thank you very much. So I took all my papers and everything that I printed out, and I shredded them and burned them and got rid of them. I thought I was going to get raided. I thought they're coming to get me.
They probably want to recruit you.
Well, it's funny because nothing ever occurred of that. And years go by, and I'm sitting later on, without saying too much, I'm sitting at a desk going for a type of clearance. And the guy looks at me and smiles, and he says, White House signal, huh? And I my ears kind of perk up, and I'm like, I knew immediately what he was talking about. I said, that's on there? And he smiles and he says, actually, it helped you get the position.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you're definitely their material, the good guys anyway, not the idiots.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I gotta tell you, I was forced, because here's what happened. It was like I got that Atari 400 and a little 300 baud modem, and we would call them I discovered bulletin boards, BBSs. This was when the internet was ARPANET and DARPANET, or experimental millnet network. It wasn't like it is today, but we had bulletin boards that we'd call. Well, the bulletin boards were all over the country. Only one person on a bulletin board at once, but there's all over. So I was making phone calls. Oh, well, just one more. It's only, 10 cents a minute? Just one more. Oh, it's only 10 cents a minute. My first phone bill came in a manila envelope. And I knew what happened was it was like, I don't know how many $1,000, but I had to learn another option because I was going to get, smashed by my parents. So that's what got me into learning about how the phone system worked and what phone phreaking was. At the time, there were no laws on a lot of things that you could do to explore the phone system and make free phone calls. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you'd piggyback on a trunk, or sometimes it was the time when the blue box was born, and the 2600 hertz whistle, where you could blow literally the Captain Crunch whistle was, for coincidence, 2600 hertz, and that was the frequency that if you dialed a 411 information operator, you could blow them off the trunk with that, and you could seize it, and then if you knew what sequences of tones, you could create conference calls, you could make free phone calls, you could do whatever you wanted on the phone system, and at that time the kids just loved it. We were having 50 people all on a call, and, just having a good old time, and a bunch of 13, 14-year-old kids running around.
That's great. Wow. That's an interesting life you've had.
Oh, and we used to, I remember going through dumpsters at 4 o'clock in the morning in the middle of downtown San Francisco. We're diving into the dumpsters, running from the police and security. And what are we looking for? Service manuals.
That's funny.
Yeah, but we had a great old time. Nowadays, that's, you get caught in a dumpster, and on private property. They're going to label you a terrorist for
no dumpster diving, Mr.Rho.
Yeah,
that's what are you thinking?
Jeez.
A lot of people still do that, though. Well, you know what they say? I've actually saw something where people are living in dumpsters. They're remodeling them, and they're making these miniature little places to sleep.
Yeah, I actually thought about making a project about getting a bunch of sea containers and putting them together. Mm-hmm. And, I was going to make I wrote a thing about if we could combine a bunch of them in an area and we could make a place for homeless people. We can incorporate kitchens in there. It could be a cat saving area so that they have something to do. And I'm trying to think of ways to, better the society instead of every time somebody buys a new area of land somewhere, like where I live, they do the same thing. It's a parking lot, a fast food place, and a bunch of retail shops. Mm-hmm. And I mean, can't we go in another direction? Can't we think outside the box? I mean, we got a bunch of homeless people living in the parking lot, and not all of them are there of their own free will. Not all of them are good, not all of them are bad, but maybe we can start by little baby steps.
I agree. Well, they shouldn't be punishing the homeless, and the bottom line is it's cause and effect. I mean, some of those people might be there for various reasons, but sometimes people have hard times too. And I'll tell you what, when I see all these homeless vets and everything else that's going on with homeless people, and then we have all these invaders coming over the border with all these perks, that's just not appropriate. I'm sorry. You have to take care of the homeless here first. Take care of these people and stop treating them like dirt because they're on the streets. Anybody can be on the streets. People live from paycheck to paycheck sometimes. Some people have it more comfortable, some people don't.
Yeah, I mean, I often think about the $30-something trillion bailout that they wound up giving all of our money, or the money that was available. Obviously, they gave the $37 trillion to the banks, which swallowed it up, and now it's gone. And if you calculate it out, if you divide the $37 trillion by all the debt, it would have been enough. It would have been enough to pay every mortgage, every student loan, every personal loan, every car loan, every debt, every outstanding credit card bill, and put like tens of thousands of dollars in everybody's bank account. And that's including the rich people that didn't need it. And we could have stimulated the economy. And can you imagine if you were a homeless person and you all of a sudden had $30,000 to do with whatever you wanted to? Maybe that could help you get off your back on your feet, and how much that could stimulate the economy. I have debts to pay myself. If I had an extra $30,000, I'd actually be in a pretty good position. So, but no, we had to give it away to the banks, and only Iceland is the only place on the planet that did the right thing. They put their bankers in jail. They restructured their government or redid it, and now they're not doing too bad. Mm-hmm. They're doing all right. But that's not in the news. That's not in the mainstream news. Granted, Iceland is small, but, we could do it state by state.
Oh, I think we could do it here in America. Actually, I think we need a shakedown big time. And like as I said before, we need to fumigate the whole D.C. area. We need to restructure everything. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we're going to head for a break. Everybody, please stay tuned. We'll be right back here with Mr.Rho. I'm Solaris BlueRaven. This is Ravenstar's Witching Hour. Be right back.